Hey friends, it's Kelo here with another video of the Encore. That's the, I believe, fourth in a row of my story of building my second startup in public. I've been away for a couple of weeks, have been attending SaaS Talk in Ireland, the biggest SaaS conference in Europe, and a couple other things going on in my life, so I haven't been super active here, but I'm trying to get back on track. In my previous video, I discussed how I research ideas for my startup, and in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I talk to people and customer development, the mistakes I did in the last 3-4 weeks, discussing my ideas and trying to validate my startup ideas by doing customer development and interviews with people. So I'm like a couple of weeks behind schedule on this. So bear with me. These videos again are not scripted, so I'm just going to go over a few different points that I did in my last weeks doing customer development. So the first thing I did is start by using the standard approach, which is a general wide discovery research type of approach where I choose a niche and then I try to talk to people and ask them general questions about their workflow, their day-to-day operations, and then try to narrow down a specific problem. However, I found this very ineffective. I did probably around like 10 to 15 interviews, choosing a couple of niches. First one was focused on salespeople, and that's where most of the time I stuck with this audience of salespeople. The reason I found that approach ineffective is because it's too vague. So the first thing I found is that a lot of people were annoyed that I don't have a specific question. They were feeling interrogated. When I asked someone like, what do you do on a daily basis? Tell me more about your workflow. They felt like I've been putting them on a spot, like I'm interviewing them for a job. And the other thing is that because I didn't provide any value, so I didn't show up as an expert or someone with a status in that space, they weren't open to giving away their time. And overall, the result was like people don't like stay at their job and just think, okay, I have this specific problem. I need someone desperately to solve this problem for me, because at least not in the spaces that I've been researching, which is sales, marketing, so very tech savvy people working in the digital space. And most of the time, these people, they are overloaded with tools. They're saturated with different solutions. So it's not like they're contemplating what to do exactly, how to solve a specific problem, and just searching for a person to solve that problem. Again, because they're very tech savvy. The spaces are most, like, for example, I spoke to one of the people in sales, and what he told me was, we pay for too many tools and don't use enough tools. So these people are proliferated with solutions. And this approach didn't lead to any meaningful problems or any meaningful insights for me. So I switched to a different approach, and rather than trying to going with like an overall, like a general audience and then trying to narrow down the problem and solution, I came up with, okay, so let's come up with a specific hypothesis for a problem and a specific hypothesis for a solution, and then try to find the audience and the ICP based on that. So maybe a bit counterintuitive based on what people like in the lean customer development or like experts on idea validations would tell you, but this seems to be a bit more productive where I could find some more tangible insights. And I came up with a different, like maybe different ideas, and as I shared in my previous video, I choose an idea, then I put together like the project management structure of where I put everything in ClickUp. You can check my previous video, and then I start talking to people, collect their feedback, trying to extract some specific insights. And the way I approached that was by trying to provide a little bit of value and present myself as a knowledgeable person in the space, not just a random person asking vague questions. And then I tried to relate to their potential problems and share my personal experience in the space. So just to give you an example of the type of questions and the overall script I used, if I go to one of these projects, so this one here was for, I had an idea for a different type of digital sales room. And the way I approach the customer development interviews is first I divide them into expert interviews and then the buyer interviews. So the expert is someone that is knowledgeable person with a status in that space, someone who understands the space, and my goal there is to get a top level overview of the space, so like a shortcut to the answers that I need. So for example, if you ask me, if you talk to me, I'm an expert in marketing automation, or someone who's run marketing automation, email marketing tool for the last 5 years, who exited successfully that product. If you talk to me, then I can give you a fairly objective view on the space. So this is one type of people, one type of persona that I reach out to. And the other type of persona is the buyers. In this specific case, these are account executives. So this is the ICP buyer. So it's depending on who I speak to, there's different approaches. With the expert, I try to share my previous experience in the space and why I'm actually talking to them. In this case, I want to share that I run a B2B SaaS with a sales funnel where there's a dual funnel, like a self-serve plus product-led sales-led motion. And then I want to share my problem so they can relate to me and see that I'm someone that has experience in the space, someone that have experienced these problems, and someone that is not a waste of time to talk to. So I share about my problems with lead qualification, getting trials to demo calls, and then converting those demo calls to customers. And then I share my agenda, which is the goal. My main goal is to help people, similar companies, solve these problems. And then I share my experience working with similar companies, apart from my own startups, so medium and small startups. Then share some of the processes I help them, and so on and so forth. The idea is to present myself as someone who can not only extract value, but also share some value. And this approach worked much better. People feel kind of relief when they hear that I'm someone that has experience and not this random person that is wasting their times. And then I lean into the questions, and then I share what is the problem that I want to solve. In that case, improve conversion rates from lead to trial, and then from a demo to customer. And then I try to ask what would be the tactics and strategies that have worked best for high-performing salespeople. This is the ICP of the buyer in this space. So the idea here is to get the expert to share their reference experience in what they believe my ICP, the buyer, would do to be successful in that space. So I kind of trying to understand more about the ICP by asking the expert to provide me information about the ICP. So that's the first persona. The second one is the actual ICP, the buyer, the potential buyer. And then the type of questions that I try to ask them is try to make them about the past and the present versus the future. So these are things that they have already experienced, they have already done in their job. And things that I ask them is like, what are the KPIs they track? how do they budget software, who would be the economic buyer of, in this case, digital sales room. So who would be the economic buyer in their company, who would be the decision maker who says, okay, we have the money or we don't have the money to buy the software. And if they haven't tried that type of software, why? And then there's a bunch of other questions which are more general about their role. So again, I can ask more questions about like how they do the sales demo close, what they do on a day-to-day in the operations, what the typical deal size and customer profile, what is their sales stack, to learn more about the technology they use. Then there's a bunch of things like about the market, and then the urgency. So I try to pinpoint if this is something that they might be interested in right now or no. And then I try to anchor this to value points. So how much time does follow-up cost to your team? Have you paid for tools to speed up sales before? What convinces you? And to be completely frank with you, I don't ask most of these questions because the conversations are very free-flowing. So I just follow where the conversation goes, but I can use this from time to time as clues and just tips on where to lead the conversation. And what I found is that most of the time people will not give me a explicit answer. So they won't tell me, okay, so this is the problem I have and I need this solution. So it's more about reading between the lines and finding implicit feedback. So to give you an example with this DSR idea, my hypothesis with this DSR idea was, so for people that don't know, digital sales rooms are like micro sites or like internal sites that you send to your leads after a sales call, where you share, like, for example, transcript of the call, mutual agreement plan, which is essentially a to-do list that the potential lead needs to do in order for them to become a customer, some objection handling. So think of it like a sales enablement collateral that you send after a call as a follow-up to be on top of the track and just keep the sales process moving. So my idea was, okay, the moment people create these DSR rooms manually, so they have to put different like playbooks, PDFs, pricing, to-do list, all manually. And my hypothesis was, what if we automate that process and use AI to create these DSRs just through a single click? And this sounded like a cool idea initially, but then I found by implicitly listening to the potential leads that it's not something that's viable, because DSRs are mostly used to sell to a enterprise or semi-enterprise deals. So talking about $10,000 per year. And the way salespeople approach building these DSRs is manually. So they go in manually, they put manually PDFs, so they curate a lot of the content there. So there isn't that much of a scale. There's no need to scale that process with AI, and they don't spend a whole lot of time building those. So there's just a small number of DSRs they have to build, and they don't spend like hours and hours. Usually they have like a template, and most of the playbooks, the PDFs, the tasks are either templated, or they already have them like in a Google Drive or whatever, and they just drag and drop and then build the DSR very quickly. And the way I figured out this is not by getting them to people to share like explicitly, so this is how I do it, I don't need this. It's more about implicitly listening and they telling me, okay, so we do this many amounts of enterprise deals. We only do DSRs for very high value leads. And I kind of generally hate doing DSRs. So some of them said that they find it valuable. Others said that that the potential buyers didn't actually look into these micro-sized DSRs. So the implicit the result of this implicit feedback was that there's no need for a high-scale automated AI-generated DSRs. So that's how I kind of scratched this idea, and this is one of my ideas that I've been validating. So yeah, long story short, I switched from the general discovery approach to choosing a specific problem, and then tried to ask questions about their past and present versus what they would potentially do in the future, and then collecting this implicit feedback. Results have been mixed. So I did manage to invalidate most of the ideas. Of course, it's not like a 100% certainly that I could say, okay, this idea will not work. But based on my interviews, which are fairly limited in number, so most of the times I'm talking about like 3, 4, 5 interviews. So for example, with these DSR ideas, I heard this from like, let's say 3, 4 people, something like that, even less. So it's not like I have this huge number of data, but the signals are pretty strong when you listen between the lines and make some conclusions. So that's as far as my experience with talking to people. In the next video and blog post, I will share more about how I approach my next sprints of validation. I had a couple more sprints and pivots after the DSR idea. The first one was about a customer intelligence platform, which I built a landing page for, and I'll share, again, unsuccessful. I will share how I approach this, and then there's the last idea that I'm currently working on, which is AI agents for Slack, which was kind of pivot on the customer intelligence platform. And what I'm doing right now, next week, is reaching out to people and trying to validate this idea by showing what I'm trying to solve and showing them the landing page. And I will also talk about my experience at SaaStock and maybe potentially finding a first pilot customer, or at least a potential pilot customer for that idea for AI Slack agents. So that's for now. Thanks for taking the time, and see you on the interwebs.